So I started a new series a few days ago. I started the Gemma Doyle trilogy by Libba Bray. The first book is called A Great and Terrible Beauty, and I was pretty hesitant going into it because, as you all know, I have a pretty terrible track record when it comes to finishing series, and I really just didn't want to have another unfinished series on my shelf, even though I don't have a physical copy. But I thought this seemed like historical fiction and it had some supernatural aspect to it, so I thought I would give it a try, and I'm really enjoying it at the moment. And I thought that I would just kind of blurt out all of my thoughts within this vlog and then put it together or something. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I am planning on marathoning this series because I'm enjoying it so much at the moment, and I just want to be in this world because I just want to know what happens. Okay, I did a really bad thing. I went on Tumblr and I kind of tried to look up a specific spoiler because so there's this guy, right? There's this guy that shows up at the start of the book, and he keeps following her or something. So I just looked up a little bit of a spoiler on how important he was in the book, and obviously if he's a character that's introduced in the very beginning, he's going to be pretty important. So I'm excited to see what happens in the rest of the book. I was actually surprised how the topic of friendships, especially female friendships, is really kind of explored in this book, which I absolutely love, because this book reminds me a lot of there's this witch TV show that I watched when I was 9 or 10. I can't remember what it's called, but the premise was it's about this witch. It's about this girl who goes to this kind of witch boarding school, and I'm pretty sure it was all girls, and she's kind of like one of those girls that just starts trouble a lot, without meaning to. So I don't know what it's called. If you know what it's called, let me know down below because I can't remember what that show is. But that's what this book kind of reminds me of, but it's also a lot darker than that show, obviously, which I really like. I also was not expecting witchy other realmness in this book because I thought it was kind of like a haunting kind of book. So I like that there's this secret society aspect to it. I just got up to the part where Gemma and another girl, Felicity, just decided to kind of start their own secret society, and they're in the caves drinking whiskey, and it's so good. It's just fun. There's this bit about the diary, and the guy, he mentioned something about the order, and then when they're having their whiskey in the cave, Gemma suggests that they call themselves the Order. Do they become... I don't know. I'm scared that they're going to become the bad guys. I read a bit of it last night, and I did mention in my last clip that I was surprised this book dealt heavily on female friendships, and I really like that about it. Now, I've seen a lot of criticisms on this book online, and some parts of it I can understand, especially the whole thing with, you know, Anne as a character and how everyone deals with her and all that stuff. But the other criticism that I see a lot of is the way the female friendships in this book are portrayed. And I can see how it can be a little off-putting to some people, because it is kind of, I mean, girls are mean, girls are nasty, especially around the ages of teenage, you know, years, 16, 17 especially. And I personally really like the way the female friendships are portrayed in this book, because it is that kind of frenemies type of thing where you're kind of on tiptoes with each other. There's this really great scene in the cave towards the end of that cave scene where I think Gemma said something and she didn't think that that would be a big deal, but then it ended up being a big deal and she tried to apologize. And I like how fragile, that's the word, I like how fragile the female friendships in this book are, because it really, because I myself went to an all-girls Catholic high school and I spent about 6 years there, and what I see in a lot of books is I see a lot of toxic friendships, which I think the author usually uses to showcase how horrible these kind of friendships are. But then I also see the other side of it, and it's a very healthy friendship where girls are building each other up, and that's really great. But I never see this kind of tentative fragility in friendships, especially females, and I really like that about it because I really relate to it. Okay, so it took about half of the book for Gemma to finally tell her friends about her visions, and I don't know how I feel about that, because I kept waiting for her to tell her friends. I did like that her friends didn't really like question her, you know, like they just, you know, instantly believed her. So I did kind of like that part of it, because I didn't want it to drag on for, you know, any longer. Oh wait, backtrack. I really like that scene with Kardik in the forest when they were going to see Madame Elena or something. Is that her name? I can't remember her name. But yeah, I really like the way it went down. I like the afterwards of it, because I mean, obviously it was kind of awkward on Gemma's part, but Kardik was just like not really he was trying really hard not to seem like he cared, and I was just like, dude, you and your freaking baseball bat. I also really like the dream thing that she had right after that, because I don't know, this book just keeps surprising me, because I don't think the topic of sex and like lust and stuff is really talked about in YA, so I was really surprised when it was kind of addressed and kind of shown, you know, full out. I mean, obviously it wasn't like graphic erotica or anything like that, but I did appreciate that it wasn't covered up by like metaphors and subtlety and all that stuff, you know, because yeah, I don't know why, but the topic of sex in young adult books is always seen as taboo, especially if it's from the female's perspective. So I like that Libba Bray makes Gemma like an ordinary teenage girl who's kind of like sees a hot guy and is like, oh, kind of, you know, have feelings and thoughts about him. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention. So when Kardik warns her again about her visions and all that stuff, I did like that she finally stood up to him and she was like, no, you stop following me around, stop telling me what to do and all that stuff. But at the same time, I feel like that's a bad idea, because I just think I think I mentioned it in the beginning. I think the fact that they named themselves the Order might mean that they're going to use that power and like ruin something. I don't know. I feel like something bad is going to happen because she keeps going into this other realm. Also, does anyone else think that when she meets her mother, it's not actually her mother? I have a feeling that it's not actually her mother. Okay, I can't remember what I mentioned last, but I basically marathoned the last half of the book, and I really loved the last section of this book. Overall, I like the story, and I think one of the reasons why I like this story so much is because the first book feels like an actual first book to a series. A lot of the times I read series and I don't finish them, and I think it's because the first book, especially with trilogies, the first book always feels like a solid story, and then the second and third book to me always feels like it could be combined and it would be a lot shorter. The second book just always makes me feel like it's a bridging book from the first to the third. That wasn't really the case with The Great and Terrible Beauty, which I really liked. Like, there is a plot within itself, and it did somewhat get resolved. There is a lot of build up at the beginning to kind of get you familiar with the world and all that stuff, but for me, I feel like the first book is just the beginning of an overarching story. So I'm really excited to get to Rebel Angels, which I just got in the mail the other day. Getting into the more detailed side of things, I was super scared about when they brought the magic to the real world. I was like, alright, something's gonna happen. I actually really liked the ending, and I actually really liked how it ended up. The whole scene with the gargoyles really freaked me out, and I think that's like one of my favorite scenes. I didn't know, but I kind of suspected like halfway through that the two girls were the actual, like, they would play a big role in their story now. Like, I kind of figured out a little bit earlier on who Sarah would end up being, and yeah, I think that's it. I don't really know what else to say. Oh, I also really like the way Libba Bray has balanced the real life historical kind of story with the supernatural story. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but I really like the way it's done, because it doesn't seem like you're only focused on the supernatural aspect, or you're only focused on the real life aspect. Like, it seems very even, which I really like. I think those are all my thoughts at the moment. I can't really think of like specific details, maybe because I kind of just like marathoned it and I didn't really do my updates like I was supposed to. But I'm really excited to move on to Rebel Angels. I'm also really excited to read a physical book again, because ebooks just make my eyes super tired and I hate it. Yeah, anyway, those are all of my thoughts. If you have anything else you want to discuss with me, leave them down below and then we can discuss, or you know, you can just contact me on my Tumblr. I always like to discuss things on there. Anyway, that's it from me today. I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will see you guys soon.